Go ahead.
We mean our plan directly interacts with people's sexual practices, which reduces the ability of AIDS to spread to the public. Their definition never makes an argument of what public health is, just what it is. It means it unlimits because an infinite amount of other things that could be topical, and their interpretation comes from Rossi 1, that is one public health opinion, and public health should not be based on just one opinion, and our counter-interpretation, family planning is codified as public health in the U.S. statutory law, the CDC 01. Federal funding for family planning services was established under the Family Planning Services, which created Title X of the Public Health Service Act. Prefer a legal interpretation. A, predictable legal definitions are the most subjective way of determining whether something is public health, and B, public policy education. Shannon 2. If proper terminology readily available, why should one not use it? The misuses of rules of terminology cause serious problems, even in seemingly trivial context. Every misuse of legal language impedes the understanding and consequently the progress of the law. And the word is it modifies USG means the resolution requires what public health is in U.S. statutory law, not just one professor links it should be over limited number of coercive treatment options for infectious disease spread, and causes repetitive debates and discourage creativity. We don't want to limit our counterplant's case and just says always give the negative something that means you should err on the side of the broad interpretation, and it turns their education asks that don't address the structural causes of disease and are uneducational and preclude Asia Africa impact is our this is Meyer and Schwartz 0. Public health cannot be separated from its larger socioeconomic context. It's only by addressing upstream causes of public health where it can be affected. This perspective has historically been the hallmark of public health interventions that helps identify the locus for public health interventions, addressing and eliminating non-voting issue as long as we are reasonably topical and competing interpretations are bad. Next team. We meet our plan includes pregnancy testing and subsequent treatment, and public health their interpretation scholars is just one opinion. Again, public health should not be treated by not be defined by just one opinion, and public health is preventative. We prevent OPOP and
Tony, just cross-apply your town interpretation and standards from the other flow.
Okay. Cross-apply our counter-interpretation and standards from our other flow, and they can't run two T's, and it's both abusive and forces us to contradict ourselves and to speak against ourselves. This abuse of use and reasonability and competing interpretations are bad. And next. Bush won't push for the plan. This is Cohen 4. Bush reimposed an anti-abortion gag rule on representatives of U.S. family planning assistance. He has refused on ideological grounds to authorize a contribution, and plan has bipartisan support. This is Read 1. Efforts by the pro-choice community are moving opinion in Congress. The SFRC voted 12-7 with the support of Republicans to overturn the gag rule. 33 Republicans braved White House arm twisting to vote against the gag rule as the brutal cost of Bush's policy become better understood. The gag rule is more likely to be remembered as an embarrassment than as a moral triumph, and bipartisan key to Bush's agenda. This is Corey Reports 124. President will have to work with Democrats. Bush must work with the Democrats and Republicans on all issues. We urge Republicans and Democrats to start focusing on the issues that demand a bipartisan solution, and it outweighs political capital. This is Yahoo News 6. Bipartisanship and compromise are today's buzzwords. What a short road from the political capital to need for bipartisanship, and the plan doesn't cost political capital. All necessary support already exists for its repeal. This is Plumber 6. Boxer sponsored an amendment that would overturn the gag rule and pass in the Senate with the GOP now consigned to the minority. Nothing is stopping a showdown with the president over the issue. In support, the support exists in Congress. We're correcting this policy, and in this case, PC won't matter. The evidence does not assume stats go over Republicans and Democrats. Stop. Next up, Canada no solvency. Canadian aid lacks localization. Has empirically been horrible. Add assistance to Globe and Mail 7. Canada has poured billions of dollars in aid into sub-Saharan Africa over the decades, with the sad fate of that aid, and the great tragedy of the region is captured by a simple graph on the cover of the new Senate Foreign Affairs Committee report on the situation. A blue line that tracks Africa's share of global economic activity stakes across the grid, slipping steadily downward. Sub-Saharan Africa's economic share has dwindled to almost half of what it was since 40 years of foreign aid has gone little to propel Africa from economic stagnation or to improve the quality of life on the continent. The Canadian International Development Agency has failed to make a foreign aid difference in Africa. CID is an ineffective, costly, and overly bureaucratic. CID should be abolished or drastically overhauled, but after 2 years and the testimony of more than 400 witnesses on 3 continents, the committee has produced a thought-provoking analysis. They reserve much of their time for the aid agency that's directed $12.4 billion foreign aid programs for Africa, but the ability to have a thorough grasp of the development changes facing Africa from within the continent's history, values, and experiences in this relation to dominant Western values. And CID has been largely in effect. The picture here is that you don't solve a problem if you don't understand it. You solve Africa's problem by understanding Africa's values first and any other second, in addition to the need for CID to incorporate African values and its African programs and use African Canadians. The report argues that CID is hampered by its structure, lack of formal statute, and consistent leadership, and the fact that 81% of its employees work in Ottawa and only 19% actually work in the field. Such lack of hostile policy framework has been CIDA since its inception in 1968, spending $12.4 billion in bilateral assistance to Sub-Saharan Africa with few results. And they say Canada won't be able to solve for the U.S. software, which means they can't get any solvency off that. And it doesn't matter if there's no cultural understanding that that's any of their funding solvency. And international fiat bad distorts decision-making progress. Policymakers don't make decisions based on other countries' opinion capability. Means it's outside your jurisdiction, generates unproductive knowledge and non-reciprocal and infilling regrets. There are hundreds of international bodies that also justify fiating that countries won't go to war and are counter-terrorism. And even counterparts that have the U.S. encourage Canada to do plan solve their offense. This is more of a limits and ground and turn, rejecting U.S. action in order to avoid invented and net benefits kill solvency and is a turn in the wrong direction. This is both how to four. The AIDS pandemic is incomprehensible in its enormity. U.S. should play an active role in combating the entry of religious conservatives into the struggle has given the issue a hearing. The challenge is for all to fight the pandemic on all fronts, and whatever their views on other issues, conservatives, liberals, and the medical community should reach a consensus on the effective practices. AIDS will not wait if a common front can be matched. Results could be impressive. How much time?
A minute 30.
Software and a gag rule is actively creating anti-American sentiment and killing software. This is dire strikes here. The gag rule causes in foreign countries to scorn the U.S. for imposing restrictions. Women's groups are ostracizing NGOs who came into the U.S. AIDS gag rule requirement. Gag rule serves to foster anti-American sentiments. Anti-U.S. climate hampers the ability of the U.S. to maintain its leadership role in international settings. And this is key to the war on terrorism. Attraction is key to crucial alliance building. This is not Meyer 6. If you think of the war on terrorism as a clash between Islam and the West, you are mischaracterizing the situation. It's a clash within the extreme and majority who want things, a better life, education, healthcare opportunities, and a sense of dignity. Soft power is essential to attract majorities with values that not to being Americans, but into better opportunities, education, healthcare, and dignity prevail against terrorism unless the majority wins. That is the role of soft power. When you need to use hard power, you will not solve by bombs alone. Governments will share information to do with terrorists, but the degree of sharing depends upon the degree to which you are attracted to the other country's soft power is key to being able to wage a struggle against terrorism. And how much time?
10.
This is Alexander 3. Terrorists have introduced a new scale of violence in threats and impact the internalization, brutalization. Make it clear that we've entered an age of super terrorism.
That's 10.
Okay.